morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our monthly get-together. And I hope everyone is suitably pleased with their efforts. Certainly I am bowled over at the way you have taken the bull by the horns. What was that topic I gave you? Who remembers? Three-dimensionality. Well, what a task and what a challenge. And you've all risen to it. Every single one of you has included some of the major points that we have gone through. I'm seeing lots of frames within frames. I'm seeing lots of three-dimensionality with acute lighting. I'm seeing lots and lots of strokes. And I can say without doubt that everyone has adopted and included lots of the techniques. So I'm really impressed. Well done, everyone. Well, we'll kick off with bill number 1. And Bill has gone to a stately home somewhere. I guess it's National Trust. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And he has very, very cleverly used a frame within a frame technique pardon me, to let us look through the iron gates, these wrought iron gates at the building beyond. So well done on that. Now, the ideal time to take a photo is not midday with a grey sky. Nonetheless, if you're on a coach trip, you'll often find that you're in the location at that sort of time. And if you're lucky, you will have acute lighting, which will add three-dimensionality. What do I mean by acute lighting? Lighting off to one side so as to show the texture in the stonework, the different facets of the building. Unfortunately, on this day, Bill was confronted with a grey sky, very soft light, which is wonderful for portraiture, but it's not so jolly good for this particular architecture. Nonetheless, I like the frame within the frame. I'm just going to look at Bill's EXIF data, and I can see that he was using a focal length of 18 millimeters and a shutter speed of a 200th of a second, great, with an aperture of f8. Now, he could easily have gone to f11 or possibly even f16. Excuse me. African dust on the throat there. That would have given him a shorter exposure time and a deeper depth of field. Nonetheless, the depth of field is good, the trees in the background are sharp, and he obviously wanted those to be sharp because, after all, it's a version of landscape photography. So I like that a lot. Thank you very much. And moving on. Bill number 2, once again we're getting a view of a stately home somewhere, and luckily enough Bill has chosen a moment when the sky isn't pale grey all the way across. So I love the sky. I further like the bookmarking of the tree on the left, the bookending should I say, and the fir tree on the right hand side, which is giving us a look through between the trees at this stately home. Once again, the lighting isn't quite what we'd like, but there again, the time that one arrives at these places isn't always at one's own control. So well done on that one. I like the bookending on the left and the right. If I look at the EXIF data, now Bill has chosen an aperture of f8, and I'm not too certain why. But it must have been pretty bright, or else he's turned up his ISO, because he's got an exposure time of a 1,000th of a second, and I really don't know why. Now, I would have thought that that's probably because the camera has decided that aperture f8, which no doubt Bill has set on manual or aperture setting, and with the level of lighting and the ISO, which isn't shown on the EXIF data, unfortunately, 1,000th of a second will give him the right exposure, and it has. However, if, as I suspect, the ISO is way up to probably 800 ASA, he didn't get all of the quality into the photo that he might have got. So, Bill, check your ISO, check your aperture, and look at your shutter speed. It's not necessary to shoot that at 1,000th of a second unless it's jolly windy and you wanted to freeze the action of the wind on the leaves, and it doesn't look like a windy day to me. Anyway, well done, well seen, well bookended. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next one. And once again, Bill has very, very effectively used these carvings as bookends to the view through to this stately home. Unfortunately, the cloud has rolled in again. We have one of those boring grey skies. The light is very, very soft, and so there is no texture in the stonework, which we could have obtained had the light been somewhat more acute to the building. But it's a well-seen photo and well exposed. I will look at the EXIF data. I'm being a bit fussy about this, I know, but nonetheless, that's better. 400th of a second at f8. And once again, I question, what was your ISO setting? Old buggers like me, we call it ASA, but you'll find the judges these days will talk about ISO, and it's the same thing. It's the film speed. Now, don't tell me there's no film in your camera. I know, but just watch what your ISO setting is when you then set up your camera. Try to go into manual and set all three things separately depending on the subjects that you're looking at. Now, I can hear someone in the back row saying, I don't know how to change my ISO. Well, the reason is you haven't read your handbook. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. You've got to read your handbook. You must know how to change your ISO. Anyway, good shot, well seen, well exposed. Thanks, Bill. Brenda number 1. Here we go. Now, once again, we have a beautiful image between two posts, and Brenda has bookended the view through between these two posts down this sewage pipe. Well, some people take pictures of bicycles, some people take classic buildings, and some people take sewage pipes. Nonetheless, it leads us into the photo. I love the fact that the photo is bookended by the post on the left and the right, and I further appreciate the horizontal nature of the horizon. Well done, Brenda. It's good to see an horizon which is horizontal. We're led into this photo through down the sewage pipe to the outflow marker, that post there, which neatly breaks through together with the other uprights from the sea up into the sky. Unfortunately, we've got that plain blue sky, which, well, we're not in charge of the weather, but I'm sure you had a good day out photographing sewage pipes. So well done on that one, thank you. I'm just going to look at your EXIF data. Do tell me why you set the aperture at 3.3. Why on earth have you chosen an aperture of 3.3 and a 1300th of a second? There are clues here as to what you have set your camera on. Yes, I know what you did. Now you have to be able to change your ISO. And if you don't know how to, read your handbook. Well seen. Good picture of a sewage pipe. Thank you very much. Brenda 2. Now we are cooking on gas. That's excellent. Now look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the way that Brenda has chosen her camera position so as to show light on the right of the wooden stump with all the barnacles on it, and shadow on the left-hand side, giving us a roundness, a three-dimensionality. That's what the task was about. Well done. Well seen. The piece of the stump on the right-hand side is bookending the image, and the subject, as it were, the stump with the barnacles, is pretty much on the third on the left-hand side. So I'm very happy with that. I'm further delighted to see the stroke, which probably wouldn't show in the Sally Army, but nonetheless it shows on the screen of the individual viewers when we see them on our computers at home, and I'm happy with that. So well done. It's achieving three-dimensionality. That was the task, and you've achieved it. Well done. Let me look at your EXIF data. What have you got? 400th of a second aperture, 4.5. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Brenda has chosen an aperture of 4.5. Ask yourself why. And the answer is, what's in focus? The subject will be sharp, but the background, the sea up in the top left-hand corner and on the left, is out of focus, and that's good. That gives us another aspect of three-dimensionality. A 400th of a second, it was pretty bright. Focal length 12.5, okay, you're on a zoom lens, that's good. Aperture 4.5, well chosen. Pleased you did that. Thanks, well done. Brenda number 3. Once again, Brenda has given us a view through some stacks, some rocky stacks, to the scenery beyond. Very well applying frame within a frame. I like the fact that the rocky stack on the left is in the light and the rocky stack on the right is in the shadow, so we've got some depth to this photo. Further looking through at the headland, we can see that part of that headland is in the light and part in the shadow, giving us three-dimensionality. Sky, well, you're not in charge of the sky, but there is some detail in it, and yet the horizon seems to show that the tide is going out. So check your horizons. If you're anything like me, if you've any pictures with the sea or a landscape and horizon in it, you must check to get the horizon horizontal. If it's not, the judge will pick it up straight away and dock your marks. Because these images are so good this month, if I were judging these, I would be quite severe about knocking off marks for non-horizontal horizons. But now you know it, you won't ever commit that crime, that problem again. You'll always check your horizon. You will hear my voice in your head saying, check your horizon. Well done, well seen, well exposed. Good bookends, left and right, and there is three-dimensionality. We're looking at a frame within a frame. That's a good photo. Just looking at your EXIF data, aperture 3.4. Why? Why have you chosen 3.4? Did you really want something in the foreground to be sharp and something in the background to be soft? Well, actually that's what you've achieved. And it would have been much better at an aperture, perhaps of f11. That would have reduced your exposure time, and that may be then the exposure would be too long for you to handhold, in which case, of course, I know you've got a tripod, and I know you'll enjoy using it. Not sure what your ISO is. I'm going to guess it's a pretty low ISO, and the lower the ISO, the greater the quality of the image. So I suspect your ISO, though it's not showing on the EXIF data, I suspect your ISO was something in the 100 mark. But well done, and please check horizons. Diana number 1. Wow, what a beautiful picture. I like that a lot. The frame within the frame principle, the mid-grey stroke around the image itself. Looking through, the viewer is invited to look through and to see what the two people are looking at, and the man on the left has been instructed to point to the trees, and that's absolutely wonderfully done. Very well done indeed. Three-dimensionality, well, the sun is relatively low, the trees are bare, and so we have these wonderful shadows, and shadows do it for me. It's all about shadows. It's all about light against shadow, giving us three-dimensionality. I'm going to be quite severe and have a look at your EXIF data. And here we have a 30th of a second. Now that's wonderful, and it's probably about the limit of what you can sensibly hand hold. Your aperture f16, terrific, well done. Really, really good depth of field. And I'm looking into this. The trees are sharp, the archway is sharp, the paving stones in the front are sharp. I like that a lot. Could anything further have been done to it? Well, had you considered vignetting very, very slightly? Would that have improved it? I don't know, give it a try, see what works. But that image is a goodie. I like that a lot. Aperture f16, exposure time of 30th of a second, focal length 24mm, no ISO data coming through on the EXIF data, but nonetheless I think it's well taken, so well done on that one. That's a goodie. Diana number 2. Now we are cooking on gas. Well, well, well. Now Mo said, what the hell's he talking about, three-dimensionality? What does he mean? Oh, I know, he said, round things. So what have you chosen? A cabbage. Now, it's the sort of thing that we call a photographer's photo, and it's wonderful. I like that a lot. You've chosen this round thing. You've chosen the lighting position so as to give us three-dimensionality. We've got light on one side of the cabbage and some shadow on the other side of the cabbage. Not quite certain why the shadow's in the middle and the light bits are on the top right and the base of the photo. Maybe turning the whole photo over 180 degrees would have improved that. Well, try it and see. But it's a very, very good application of the challenge, three-dimensionality. I like that a lot. Beautifully stroked, vignetted, an aperture has been chosen. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the background. It's totally soft. Brilliant. The cabbage itself is pin sharp. I like that. That's wonderful. Interesting vignetting. A little bit harsh, I would say, but nonetheless, it's good to see it because it takes the focus of my attention in towards the cabbage. So that's great. A really good approach at three-dimensionality. I like it a lot. Well done, Diana. I'm going to look at your EXIF data. You know I am. A 1/5 of a second. Now, I know for sure that you put it on a tripod. You put your camera on a tripod to take that photo, because none of us can hold a 1/5 of a second and get that sharp an image. It's really good. Aperture 4.5. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. You know already that Diana has chosen 4.5 so as to get a very shallow depth of field. So the cabbage is pin sharp in the front, and everything in the background, whatever it is, sea, trees, Auntie Mabel, I don't know, is soft and out of focus. Very, very well done indeed. I like that, and I'd encourage you to do some more like that. Maybe I could think of another challenge that has to do with vegetables. Who knows? It could be a good challenge there. Thank you for giving me that idea. And good stroke, good vignetting, and brilliantly taken photo. Well done. I like that a lot. Diana 3. Now, the horizon does seem to be horizontal. The subject matter of this this pier is off centre. It's on the third. Like that a lot. The sky is very well chosen, and I suspect it was quite a windy day because I can see mooring buoys and whitecaps and waves, and that's probably quite an extreme day. So, well seen photo, very well seen photo. However, when I look at it, I zoom into it, it's actually not quite sharp. Now, is it that the focus is off, or is there a little bit of camera movement? Well, it might be easy to see if I look at your EXIF data. An exposure time of a 30th of a second. Well, you should have been able to hold a 30th of a second, but I suspect you didn't, and I suspect you didn't use a tripod as perhaps you might have done. An aperture of f16, good choice. So everything's in sharp, should be sharp, including the nearest posts, the whole of that walkway, and the opposite bank. But frankly, it's not sharp. Therefore, it's a little bit of camera movement. Now, if you did use a tripod, perhaps the tripod was being buffeted in the wind. Perhaps a weight, put your handbag on the tripod and just hold it down. A 30th of a second, you should have been able to handhold that and get it sharp, but I think maybe it was a windy day. There's a little bit of movement in there. It's not as sharp as I would expect with an aperture of f16. Well seen, well composed, and I like the stroke. Very well done. That's just the thing to do to attract the attention of the judge and show the limits of the photo against the blackness of the screen. So well done. I like that a lot. Thank you, Diana. Jeff 1. Now, Jeff decided to give us a portrait orientation of this scene in the church. Now, the difficulty here is that the light is very, very soft. And so there's no real highlight to the round things. And I guess the round thing that took Jeff's attention was the candlestick holder in the foreground. Excuse me. But we're not seeing any real roundness in that candlestick holder because of the softness of the light. Further, if I zoom in on that, I'm afraid the candlestick holder isn't sharp. The background isn't sharp, but I don't want it to be sharp. So I have to have a look at the EXIF data here. And for some extraordinary reason, Jeff has chosen an aperture of f22. Now that would mean that everything from the foreground through to the background should be absolutely pin sharp. And that's really not what Jeff was intending. I'm sure that Jeff was intending to get the candlestick holder to be sharp and the whole of the background to be soft. And he could have achieved that with a small aperture number. Small number, big hole. Small number, big hole. Shallow depth of field. Further, Jeff has used an exposure time of 2 seconds. Now, there's no one on this planet that can hold a camera steady for 2 seconds. So I feel confident that it should have been taken on a tripod with an aperture as big a hole as possible, low number, maybe f4, f2 if you can do it, if your lens can do it. Focal length is fine. I don't know what your ISO was. I rather suspect it was pretty high, maybe 400, and it could have been lower. Nothing wrong with 2 seconds exposure time, but you have to use a tripod. It's imperative. Aperture for this task had to be f4, f2 if your lens can do it. So well seen. A few technical issues there, but nonetheless, you've seen something that has some potential, and thanks for entering that. Jeff number 2. Now this is more like it. Now this is sharp, and because it's sharp, when I zoom in, everything is pin sharp. So either Jeff has used a tripod, or he's put his camera onto a stool or the back of a pew or something in this church. Now what about three-dimensionality? Well, where is the light coming from? And the only hint I've got for three-dimensionality is the light coming through from the right-hand side, giving me these flecks of coloured light down on the carpet and up on the ceiling on the top left-hand side. So it's really not very three-dimensional. Let's have a look at the EXIF data and see whether we can learn something. Again, a 20th of a second exposure time for Jeff, which does mean that it's either handheld but held onto a stool or a pew, or he used a tripod, and I suspect he has used a tripod. Now, extraordinarily, he's got an aperture of 5.6. I don't quite know why, but it's a perfectly good aperture for this record photo. So well done on that, Jeff. Keep trying, and be sure to use manual and override. Choose your own ISO, choose your own aperture, and choose your own shutter speed, having decided on your subject. Jeff number 3. Now this is more like it. Here we've got some real three-dimensionality. I love the way the fence is coming in from the left-hand side. The light through the gaps in that fence, lighting up the edges of the fence planks, as it were, leaving the side nearest us in shadow, giving us a real three-dimensionality. Further, it's providing a leading line together with that marvellous shadow on the pavements there, which is taking us into the photo. So I like that from the point of view of three-dimensionality. You've ticked the box. So we have a leading line bringing us in, both from the left and from below, into the promenade here. And then we look at the promenade and we expect to see a lady in a red anorak. But I can't say that I can see one. So what you needed, Jeff, is to take a lady with a red anorak and park her on the seat, or walk her up and down on that promenade. And, you know, some people joke about it, but if you have leading lines, the leading lines have to take us somewhere. They have to take us into a subject. And at present, it just takes me to a bunch of empty seats. I love the sky, very well chosen. I love the way that you've led us into the photo, and that's a very good effort. Thank you, Jeff. Good man. I am going to look at EXIF data if it will turn up. Now tell me, Jeff, why on earth have you set the aperture at 5.6? Why oh why? You wanted everything to be sharp, including the foreground and the background. So you should have gone to an aperture of at least f11 and probably f22. Why oh why have you gone for a shutter speed of a 2,000th of a second? You'd use that to freeze motion. There's nobody moving in this picture. So I have a suspicion of how you took this photo, and you must read your handbook. You've got to know how to set your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture. Read the handbook, Jeff. You've got to master this. You're getting there, but there's a little way to go yet. I can't understand why you've shot at 2,000th of a second. Nonetheless, there's a learning point. You're doing well. Keep making progress. You'll be top of the class soon. Well done. Iris number 1. Now, this is absolutely astonishing. Look at this. What did Mo say? What the hell does David mean? Three-dimensionality. Oh yes, round things. So Iris, ladies and gentlemen, has chosen an Easter egg full of little Easter eggs. What a wonderful choice. Very well done indeed. She's actually chosen quite a difficult one because the internal Easter eggs are covered in metallic foil. And you know, and I know, the difficulties of taking anything with shiny metal in them. We did that last year. But Iris has achieved it. Further, look at the stroke. Now, you may or may not be able to see it, but if you zoom in on that stroke, you'll see it's chocolate brown. Well, clever girl. Well done, Iris. I like that. Yes, you're keeping your skills hidden from us, aren't you? Not on this one. You've shown us your real skill. I like that a lot. And you've put it, what, on a glass shelf with some sort of grey background. Let's have a look at the EXIF data. Let's see. Aperture 32. Well, blow me down. Now, why on earth have you chosen an aperture of f32? You know that that's going to put everything sharp from the very foreground to the distant background. But, ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice that the background is purely a grey wall. So there is no background to worry about it being sharp. But I still don't understand why you've taken it at f32. Okay, well you did. Your exposure time a 500th of a second. Now isn't that interesting? Why did you choose a 500th of a second? Didn't use that nasty green setting on your camera, did you? I know you didn't. So that means your ISO was pretty high. Why? Why, oh why, did you use a high ISO and a very, very fast shutter speed and an aperture at 32? Come on, be a big girl now. Read your handbook. Override the automatic. Go for manual. Set it up. Use your camera as a light meter. Do a little bit of doubling and halving and choose appropriate values. You know how to do that. Very, very well chosen. Very well taken. A little bit worried about the EXIF. Am I being hard? Am I being a hard judge today? Yeah, but there you go. You're good enough to take it. Well done. Iris number 2. And here we have a perfect example of a magazine advert. Iris has chosen to take this photo of the scent and the flowers. You'll notice that the scent bottle is sharp. The flowers are drifting into softness. Very well chosen aperture. I'll look at the EXIF data in a moment and prove myself wrong, but I think you have a very appropriate aperture. Now, how on earth you've done this oval with the image in the middle doesn't concern me. What concerns me is that you have done it and it's made quite a different photo. I don't think anyone else has done that, so that's a good step forward. Well done. I like the brown background and I further like the slightly darker chocolate brown stroke around it. So there's a lot of skill gone into this, and I'm confident that it's all your own work. So well done. Let's have a look at the EXIF data. Aperture f20. Okay, well, you know what I'm going to say. I want the label on the scent bottle to be pin sharp. I want the flowers in the background to be soft. But you've chosen an aperture of f20. Why? An 800th of a second. That's a cracking fast exposure time. Was something moving? Were those flowers about to run away from the middle of the photo? It's still life. Why did you need an 800th of a second? Ah, I know what you're going to say. The ISO was high, wasn't it? Why? The lower the ISO, the greater the quality of the image. So find out on your camera how to go to manual, use your camera as a light meter, go to manual, set your ISO on 100, set your aperture, in this case I would say at f4, and take an appropriate shutter speed with your camera on a tripod. It's beautifully post-processed with this oval and this chocolate brown shape and the darker brown stroke. Yeah, I'm impressed with that. I just don't understand your EXIF data. Iris number 3. Well, here we have what might otherwise be called a record shot of the 3 cyclists. I take it it's outside Morrison's, with a wonderful sky. Unfortunately, the sky is showing me some dirt on your sensor. Right hand corner there's 2 spots, and left hand side 3/4 of the way up there's another fluff bunny. Looks like your sensor needs a bit of cleaning. Maybe I'll bring a puffer when I see you next. Look at the way Iris has chosen to position this, ladies and gentlemen. So the cyclists have somewhere to cycle into. The fact it's an imaginary bike and all we're seeing are cogwheels and the cyclists' silhouettes themselves, but it gives us the idea that they can cycle into the space on the right hand side. So that's very well positioned. I like that. The light is at this time such that the shadow of the arm of the nearest cyclist is cast onto his body, giving us a sense of 3-dimensionality, and that's where we're going with this. Don't forget the task. The task is 3-dimensionality, and this, by virtue of the time at which you took it and the position of the sun, has achieved that. So well done. Right, well, here we go. Let's be a hard judge again. Let's have a look at the EXIF data. And what have we got here? A 1250th of a second. Were these cyclists doing 30 miles an hour across the screen? Well, must have been a miracle. Aperture 22, f22. Extreme depth of field. Why? Why? I don't know. Well, I suspect your ISO was very high indeed, because it was a bright day maybe, but it didn't need to be. Your shutter speed didn't need to be so high as that, unless there is movement involved. And the aperture, well, if you wanted that sky to be dead sharp, f22 is fine, but wouldn't it have been better at f4, so the sky was blurred into softness? Okay, well, some interesting learning points there. Thank you for submitting, and I hope you've got your handbook to hand. Mo 1. Ah, yes. Yes, now Mo's done a David on this one. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen, this motorcyclist beautifully exposed, beautifully positioned in the frame, with the handlebars turned such there's somewhere for the motorbike to move into. And the image of the motorcyclist is pin sharp, but look at the background. Soft. Ideal. Just exactly what we want. But is it genuine? Well, I suspect there's a little bit of photo manipulation, jiggery-pokery going on here. And I'll show you where to look. If you look at the trouser leg, you see that edge of the trouser leg there, and if you look at the top of the crash helmet just up there, you see how that crash helmet is suddenly blurred, a bit like the background's blurred. So it's a good attempt, Mo, and it's the sort of thing I do and I hope to get away with, but I'm afraid, Mo, you didn't get away with it, mate. Good bit of photo manipulation, jiggery-pokery, and I like it a lot. You'll also notice, well, I don't know if it's showing on your screen, there is no EXIF data. Cunning. He's taken off the EXIF data and just given us the photo. It's well taken. It's sharp where it should be sharp. It's soft where it should be soft. But the cutout hasn't quite been 100%. Am I being fussy? He's nodding his head. Yes, I am being fussy. Good stroke, very thin, 2 pixels, mid-grey, not red. Excellent. With an appropriate aperture, had he read his handbook, which I somehow doubt, sometimes, that green waste bin would have been lost into insignificance. And yes, it's distracting me. Now I've seen it, the green waste bin is troubling me horribly. Is it showing 3-dimensionality? Of course it is. Is it artificially achieved? Of course it is. But it's certainly addressing the task. 3-dimensionality, well achieved. Thanks, Mo. I hope he doesn't mind me ribbing him. Well, he's sitting next to me, so he can poke me if he likes. Mo number 2. The classic round things. What a good idea. Bit like Iris's Easter egg, Mo has chosen 7 eggs. 6 in a holder and 1 in an egg cup. How well chosen. Beautifully exposed. There's no EXIF data, so I can't moan about his EXIF data, but he's vignetted it. Top right, top left, beautifully vignetted. Light from the left and some from the right, giving the roundness to these eggs just exactly what we asked for. Perfectly done. Stroke, interesting stroke, sort of rounded edges. I take it that's something that his particular software will do at the click of a button, and it's well done. I like that. Compositionally, it's very symmetric, and it's almost a pattern picture by virtue of the 6 eggs and the 1 in the egg cup. If I were to be very picky, not that I'm ever very picky, well, sometimes, the top egg is very, very near to the edge, and I like a little bit more space, just a couple more millimeters above the top egg. The others are perfectly sharp, and I like them very much. I'm not too certain about the little lion painted on the eggs. He's turned them all around so the lions are facing us. Cunning. Yes, very cunning indeed. Well done, Mo. It's achieved it. It's addressed 3-dimensionality, and it was original. So it's up there in the top rankings, I think. Well done, Mo. Good man. Mo number 3. Well, he's found us here one of these intriguing jigsaws of timber, and lit it in such a way that some faces are in the light, some faces are in shadow, some faces are actually casting quite hard shadows, and this gives me a clue as to how this was lit. So it's very well seen and very well thought of. It's not round exactly, but it is 3-dimensional. So I like that a lot. It's very, very well done. And did I ever tell you about the way I judge, the SIL? Story, intrigue, and does it make the judge laugh? Well, does this score on any one of those bonus points? Story, pass. Does it make the judge laugh? Pass. But it is intriguing, so he gets a bonus mark for it being an intriguing image. Sharp through the grain of the timber, dropping into softness as the timber gets further and further away. Cunningly, he has deleted the EXIF data, so I can't criticise his EXIF data. And that's a shame, because I'd like to see how he's taken it. It's well lit, well seen, and well thought about. How could it be improved? It's a little bit burned out on the white pieces of timber, and therefore I'd like to see the EXIF data, the exposure, just so that I can nag him about the ISO. And other than that, it's well seen. Well done, Mo. Suzanne number 1. SIL. It's intriguing. What on earth is it? Is it ceramic? Is it paper? Is it foil? Is it somehow a reflection? It's wonderful. I love it. It's doing lots for me. That's a terrific image. It's a little small on my screen. I'm going to have to enlarge it. And having done that, it's losing some of its sharpness. But I am coming to appreciate the double stroke, the black mount and then a white stroke outside that. The sharpness has been achieved and softness in what I take to be the background. Very intriguing image. It's a little central for my liking, and I think had the centre bright spot been off-centred, offset a little, it would have been a slightly stronger image. Nonetheless, it definitely gets the bonus point for being intriguing, because I have no idea what it is at all. Perhaps you'll be kind enough to tell me when we are on the train on Wednesday. Let's have a look at the EXIF data. A 15th of a second. It's got to be taken on a tripod or somehow braced on a stool or a stand. Aperture 4.3. Brilliant. Very, very appropriate. Sharpness in the foreground, dropping into softness in the background. Well chosen. Here's a lady that's read her handbook. Well done, Suzanne. And I can't see your ISO, but nonetheless, I wonder what this is. It's a very good photo, Suzanne. Well done. Just reposition it before you put it into your camera club. Very slightly off-centre the point of interest, and I think that's brilliant. I wonder if it works upside down or even turned 90 degrees to the right. I think it does. Give it a try. I think that's a goodie. Yeah, very good indeed. 15th of a second at 4.3. Love it. Well done. Well done, Suzanne. Next one. Suzanne 2. Now, when I first saw this, I was intrigued. What is it? And I think it's a mushroom, but it doesn't matter if it's not. It's a wonderfully seen image. Very imaginatively taken. And I'm going to have to zoom in to have a closer look. And when I do, it seems not to be quite as sharp as I'd like it to be. Now, I don't know why that is, and it might be. We'll look at the EXIF data in a minute and see if we can tell a few things. I like the, well, it's a frame. It's almost as if you've got on your photo manipulation jiggery-pokery software a frame effect rather than a stroke. And that works for me, that's fine. And I very much like the way you've positioned this mushroom off-centre with a little bit of negative space on the right-hand side. Let's have a look at the EXIF data and see if we can discern something. A 60th of a second. That's good. That's good. You can handhold that. Aperture 3.7. Very good to give us sharpness in the nearest point and or the point of focus, and softness in the background. Well chosen. Yes, I like that a lot. You are mastering this technique, and you are mastering it very well. I like the idea of taking a photo of a mushroom. I like the composition of it. I like the frame that it's been put in. Not all judges would like that. They might have preferred a simple stroke, but you do it to enjoy it, and you do what you like. And I like it too, so that's very good indeed. I'm impressed with that one. Well done, Suzanne. Just isn't quite as sharp as I would have expected, had it been on a tripod. Next one, Suzanne 3. Speaking of sharpness, here we have what I take to be the bark of some wood. Or is it another strange sort of mushroom that I don't understand? And it is pin sharp. Love it. Very good indeed. Lit in such a way that it's achieving three-dimensionality. The foreground, the nearest part of this wood shaving is pin sharp. The furthest part of the wood shaving is soft. The background is soft and the lighting is appropriate. I like that a lot. If I were to be really picky, I think I'd like it placed very slightly off centre, one way or the other, and it may work rotated 90 degrees. Don't know, try it, you see what works, see what you like. So Suzanne has chosen to give us this image which demonstrates her expertise of getting something sharp where it's supposed to be sharp, drifting into softness because of the aperture she's chosen, and a soft background. Well done, Suzanne. I think you're very nearly top of the class. Very nearly. You're certainly coming on really well. No EXIF data, good stroke, black background and a white stroke around that. And I'm beginning to see a very, very thin inner stroke as well. 1, maybe 2 pixels. Very well post-production, post-produced. So yeah, I like that a lot. Well done, Suzanne. Terrific image. Terrific image. So we've got Terry number 1, who's chosen to give us a book ending between the tree on the right and the bushes on the left, and he's brought along with him a lady in a pink anorak who he has asked to stand on the 1/3 of the way in. So that's well thought of, very well positioned and composed. I don't know how many you took, whether the lady was walking towards you and you could stop her and start her, whether she was under your control or just a passerby. Nonetheless, that's giving us a good look in with bookends. It's not quite a leading line and a solid base on the photo. I like that. Well chosen sky. You obviously had a telephone call to the weather gods and arranged the sky to be perfect. I like that sky. Unfortunately, the lighting is a little bit soft, and so we're losing some of the roundness of the pole, that pole there, which is probably a ventilation pipe for the sewers down below. It doesn't look like a lamp, it doesn't look like a telegraph pole. I think it's just a ventilation pipe. And as such, I think it's getting towards three-dimensionality by virtue of the dark tree on the right-hand side and the bookend of the bushes on the left. I love the composition of the lady in the correct position, and so well done on that. Don't know if we can have a look at the EXIF data, just to be really, really mean to you. F11, good depth of field on F11, a 640th of a second. Well, I take it the lady was moving. I've got a feeling it might have been a little bit windy, but that probably betrays a higher than necessary ISO, and it may have been best to have overridden the ISO and taken it down to a 100 ISO and about a 100th, maybe a 200th of a second exposure. So being a bit picky this time, but you're all so good that I've got to find something to say, otherwise everyone's going to say, well, they're all good and we can't improve them. This is well seen, well taken, well framed. Thanks, Terry. Let's move on to Terry number 2. Now this is astonishing. This is the sort of photo that your grandmother would say, why on earth did you take that? It's a photographer's photo and it's very, very well seen. The long shadow with the low sun, very well seen. The three-dimensionality of this bollard is shown by the light on the right-hand side, the shadow on the left-hand side. I like that a lot, both in composition and in principle. I hope you took lots of them. I hope you put your camera much lower down, because I rather feel that this is a 5'8" f8 image, whereas you could perhaps have taken the camera down low, got close up to the bollard, and seen what else you could do with it. Of course, you may say, well, that would have then included some background which might have been clutter, clutter like green waste bins or other things that we've seen in some of the previous photos. I can't remember whose photo it was with a green waste bin, but he's probably sitting next to me. Nonetheless, well seen, well taken, and it does achieve three-dimensionality. So, well done. Let's have a look at the EXIF. EXIF data. Oh. Why on earth have you chosen a shutter speed of a 1,250th of a second? Was this bollard about to run away from you? Was it a moving bollard? Aperture 6.3. I suspect it's a very bright sunny day and someone's camera set itself on a high ISO. You've got to override that ISO. You could have set it down to ISO 100. That would have reduced your exposure time, or whichever way you like to think of it, increased it to a 60th or a 100th of a second. Aperture 6.3, can you get it down to an f4? Can you get down to f3.5? I don't know what your lens can do, but having a lower ISO will give you a higher quality image. I hope you didn't use the green button, but I suspect the camera's ISO setting was far too high. Very interesting to look at EXIF data. Thank you for including it. Good image, well seen, well composed. It does address three-dimensionality. Well done. Let's move on to Terry 3, and this is an interesting hanging basket, and Terry recalls a comment that I gave to someone in a previous critique pertaining to, I think it was a lantern on that occasion, and the shadow that the lantern cast on the wall behind it. And Terry has seen that this shadow is giving a three-dimensionality to the hanging basket. And so that's well seen. I like that a lot. Unfortunately, the basket is hung very close to the wall, and the wall has some detail in it which is pin sharp, and we could have had that softer. How could we have had that softer? Well, I hear you say, by choosing an F number, which is low, and an appropriate shutter speed and ISO. So let's have a look at the EXIF data, and what have we got? A 4,000th of a second. Oh my goodness gracious me. Was this hanging basket about to zoom off into space at 1,000,000 miles an hour? Aperture 7.1. Why? Therefore your ISO was probably way up in the 800 region. I'm guessing. You may say it's not. It was 1,000. But why on earth did you let the camera take a photo at a 4,000th of a second? It's pretty much still life. You've got all the time in the world to take a meter reading with your camera. Think, what's the ISO that I need? Answer 100. What's the aperture I need? Answer f3.5. And take an appropriate exposure time. Maybe let the camera choose the shutter speed. But a 4,000th of a second. I think, Terry, you've taken the prize for the fastest shutter speed in the whole selection today. So this is obviously a photo of a high-speed hanging basket, and as such, you've certainly frozen the action. So thank you for that. Composition is good. Three-dimensionality has been addressed, and with my somewhat hard criticisms today, I hope we've all learned from each other's photos. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I have to declare the winner. And the winner quite easy for me to choose. And I know you will all agree, the winner is